Hello again. And this time we're talking about high-yield gardening. And we want to start out by talking about the timing of planting. Now let me ask you, does it make any difference when you plant your food?
Well, we went over this somewhat before. You probably heard before, but it does make a big difference. You got in the ground at the right time. I think if you were all here before at the start for the last session? Yeah, okay, well, we went over this.
So is it crucial for rain, or does it matter about cold?
Yes, it does matter. I try to get it nice warm days with lots of moisture for 3 or 4 days running so it'll have time to germinate.
Do you need manure to put on your garden?
We get a load of barnyard manure every year. It's old stuff that the farmer brings down. It's part of the deal I have with him for the rental. And he puts it on, and I plow that in. As soon as I get on the land in the spring, I plow that in, and then I till it. And I keep tilling it until I put the seeds in. And since you don't plant the garden all at once...
How many times would you till typically?
Well, that's what I said. If I don't plant the garden all at once, I keep tilling it where I haven't planted it. But how many times? At least once a week. And maybe twice a week, it depends. I till it a lot. So when I get... By the time I get ready to plant it in, it's now the strawberries, since I put them in the end of April, and the early ones I only get over it once or twice, and it isn't as weed free as the rest, so you got to work harder. But you work the soil as much as you can till you put it in.
Now we want to talk a little bit about the tools. What's this tool on the screen here?
This is what you call a rototiller, and they make them in various sizes and shapes. Personally, I like a rototiller with the tangs behind. This one's with them in front, and they're a little bit harder to use. I like a rear tang one a lot better. And if you don't have a lot of space, get a narrow one so you can put your rows closer together. We got a lot of space, so we put our rows far apart, so I got at least 4 inches on each side of the rototiller when I go down through it.
And what are these big things behind you that are standing against that chair?
Well, these are what you call hoes. You know, they're easy to use. You take this one was probably big like that at one time. It's been sharpened a lot, but you know, you use it. Now in the store they're probably square. My dad made these. I like the rectangular ones better because you can get into the narrow place, and the triangle better.
Okay, and I would like to show you the hand tools. I use hand tools. This is a trowel, and we use this for transplanting to dig up the plants. Because I'm who I am, I don't just always bend over. Sometimes it's hours you're working in the garden, and so I use a stool. And I put the stool and just keep moving it as I go along. For example, when I'm thinning out the carrots, or when I am fine weeding in the strawberries, it takes time. And so I use a stool like this, and also a hand hoe like this. I say when you're going to purchase your hand hoe, get a really good one. This is a strong one. I have found some that are cheap, and they bend when you get in really hard soil or something. Don't fiddle with that kind of thing. Get a good, strong one. And when you have to get right down in there to get the weeds out, if you really get the weeds out, you get much better food. The plants grow bigger. When they're tiny, you say, is this really going to be anything much? But we watch over our tiny plants because that's where, then they grow big, and that's where we get our food. And I wanted to show one more thing here. You know, in this day and age,
hold the mic for you,
yes, please. In this day and age, we have mosquitoes, and even there's 3 weeks usually that we have black flies in our area. Now you can purchase a kind of screen like this that you can put on your head. Don't do it. The reason is, you see underneath, they just crawl underneath. And it's worse because now they're underneath. I don't use this at all. If anybody wants it, you can have it. So what I found that works is this. This is a a jacket, a bug jacket. You buy it in a hardware store or such stores like that. And even though the part for your face is a black material, you can see out very nicely, and you are totally protected. When I have this on, I can relax. These things are buzzing all around me. It can be a bad year for black flies. I don't worry about it. Yes, once in a while, one will get through where it sticks, where it's against your head at the top, and bite you there. And if you wear a hat, I don't wear a hat in the garden, but if you wear a hat in the garden, that would take care of that on top. So I just really want you to know, they also sell a kind of pants that you can pull up, that are tight around your ankles and tight at your waist. And but I don't use that one. Usually you don't have to. If you wear pants on your legs all the way down, then you're okay. Because you've got your garden boots and everything on, so just wanted to make sure you see what you might need. Thank you. Okay. So we're mentioning about seeds. Now, we've already talked about the seeds. I think in the interest of time now, we better not talk about them much more.
I think we better go on.
Okay, let's go on. And preserving and canning foods. Now, root vegetables do not need to be blanched. We blanch our food, and I'm sure somebody's going to be talking about preserving later, so we're not going to go into that. And we could talk about that at another time.
But blanching usually is 3 minutes in boiling water, then dumped into cold water after.
And we use a bag made
and then you freeze it.
We use a bag made from curtain material for the 3 minutes and grab it out and get it immediately in cold water. That's how we do ours. So we freeze most of our vegetables now in this day and age. However, if you didn't have a big freezer, we've got 2 big freezers. If you didn't have that, you can all your vegetables. So it's just more work, but...
When I was growing up, my parents didn't have a freezer. And my mother used to can the corn, can the beans, can everything. Now, of course, there's vegetables you don't can, like the carrots and the beets. Graham touched on it. We keep them in sand. Actually, I keep them in barrels of sand in the basement. We keep our basement just above freezing, and when I got to kind of watch it doesn't freeze. But our whole basement is a root cellar. Yeah. It's an old house built in 1904, and this is the way they built them then.
Okay, and we wanted to mention about planting parsnips. Now, we did mention it briefly before. Why do you have to put something else?
Because the parsnip seed comes up very slow. Put a radish seed every 5 or 6 inches.
It takes like 3 weeks for
it
to come up.
Yeah. So sometimes you can forget you put something in there. I got the stakes at the end, but it takes a long time. But the time the radish get ready to harvest, the parsnips up about 1 inch or 2, and you can see it then.
I'm really glad that Ivan doesn't plow up if he doesn't know if the stakes are there, because I remember this one year the weeds were up like that, and if we don't see the little plants come up, we don't take the weeds because we could have the wrong thing, right? And so we just said there's no parsnips. They didn't come up this year, and Ivan's sister was there. She says, "Come with me, show me where they were." And we carefully took the weeds out, and there they were, tiny little nothings. But once you get on to what they are, then you can take the weeds out and you know whether you've got parsnips or not here.
One time here, 2-3 years ago, I had stakes, and I didn't see the stakes, but I forgot, I had planted something there, and I tilled it, and it happened to be a row of beets. But surprisingly, they were still in the seeds. Most of them came up. They weren't quite in a row then, but they came up.
And I want to mention, too, that when you plant the radish seeds on top, like with the parsnip seeds, don't forget to take the radishes out. One year, I forgot to pull the radishes out, and here they grew huge radishes, and the poor parsnips never came up because they had no place to come up. So get them out once it's time for the, 2 or 3 weeks, get them out.
It's hard to pull them up when they get big without pulling up the parsnip, too. So you got to be in time there.
Now we want to keep the rows far enough apart. Now how do you know how far to put the rows apart?
Basically, it's how much room you got too, and how big your tiller is. You got to have the rows far enough apart you can run a tiller through, unless you're going to work it all by hand. And there's various ways. I've seen people put 2 rows very close together, and then farther apart, till it that way. We just put 1 row, and I put enough room to put the tiller down. We got a fairly wide tiller. We got 4 inch each side. But if you only got a small land, well, get a smaller, narrower tiller and put your rows closer together. But don't put them any closer than, I would say, 15 inches at the least, because they got to have room to grow.
When we first got married, Ivan said, okay, it's time to plant the peas. And he said, you can go plant the peas. And he tilled it up and everything. Well, I came from the city, and so I planted them as close to the edge as I possibly could. Oh no, he says, you got to have enough room to get the tiller around, because the weeds are going to come. And so I learned that way that you have to plant them in, like, was it 2 inches or 2 feet?
Well, yeah, I put, you got to have a whole same width of the row along the edge as you do any place else.
As your tiller.
However, along the edge, I often try to plant something like onions. The onions will mature quickly by midsummer, and your other plants that you got farther in, like that are bushing out, your row of onions are gone then, so you got lots of room to till where the onions had been.
Now, we want to mention about fertilizer quick, and how to get the sweetest and the best. My neighbor across the road, she was asking one of our church members why their vegetables were so sweet. She says, it's the manure, Julie. She couldn't believe that. She was a city lady, had come to the country, and manure makes your vegetables sweeter. It really does.
Well, I don't know, it makes it bigger, but we got sweet vegetables anyway. You can get artificial fertilizer, or else, like I said earlier, you can grow soybeans, plow them in. You can build up your soil naturally.
What kind of manure?
What I got is cow manure. That's what the farmer has. But if you want to, but it's very old. It's probably there for 10, 12 years, so it's coming really black. It doesn't have all the smell to it. If you want hotbeds, I'm not in here talking about hotbeds, but hotbeds are basically a box with a glass or plastic over it. You can let the sun shine. You have them facing south. Get horse manure for that if you can. The horse manure is much hotter. It'll keep it hotter, and you can start.
Is it any good or no?
Yeah, it's all right, but it would probably.
The question was sheep manure.
Yeah, but the sheep manure is all right. As far as manure, I don't know. You'd have to, I haven't studied it. All this manure has different values. So some of it's a lot richer than others.
Sheep manure comes with seeds. You're guaranteed to get lamb's quarters wherever you put your seeds.
Well, I was going to say that even about cow manure. Any of this manure you get from farmers, the seeds will go through the animals, and you get a lot of weeds from it. So you got to be ready to work the weeds. No, I know it'll go through that too, but horse eat different kind of feed, so you might not have as much.
Now we want to talk about managing asparagus, and our asparagus bed is one we really love.
My mother planted this about 60 years ago. This bed of asparagus you see here.
And I just want to say, since I'm the one that weeds it, and I'm the one who cuts it most of the time, don't try to weed it with your hoe. There's a lot of things you can weed with a hoe, but not the asparagus, because the little asparagus is just under the ground. I have tried using my hand hoe. Again, that's not so great because you can't feel if you're coming against one of the asparaguses, and you could be cutting it off under the ground or just at the ground. So what I found that works the very best is a paring knife. I have a special one I keep just for the asparagus bed. And when you're cutting the asparagus, when you're harvesting it anyway, is the time to weed it. If you don't weed it every day or two, those weeds are going to get ahead of you. You won't even be able to find your asparagus. And so we've learned the hard way that keep weeding. When the weeds are just tiny, get them gone. And I do it with my knife. Ivan sharpens my knife for me, and he doesn't mind, I guess.
Asparagus, when you're harvesting it, you got to cut it at ground level or just in the ground. And you normally harvest it when it's from that to that or so.
Yeah, like
now,
1.5 or 2.
Asparagus, if you go away for a week or two and it grows up tall, and if it's in the cutting season, we only cut it at the end of June. You got to let it go to bush after that, or else you can kill it when it got no top. But if it grows up tall and if it's in May or that, if you're gone for a week or two, cut it off, because if you don't cut it off, it quits putting up new shoots. It looks like a big waste to throw all this nice asparagus away, but you won't get any more asparagus, it'll quit putting up shoots. But then don't cut it after the end of June.
Yeah, you can keep cutting off the tops and everything, but then you only get a little bit. They're the delicate parts, sure. But if you leave them and let them grow like a couple feet high,
well, yeah,
a foot and a half, the point is then you get a lot more for your freezer. And remember, we're preserving everything for the winter. And so that's a big one. So picking it regular. If it's a hot day, pick it every day. If it's a cooler day, pick it every other day till the end of June, and then you don't touch it after that if you want to keep it growing.
And asparagus, Phyllis came from the city, and she was surprised to find that asparagus wasn't all the same size and the same length when it grew. We get some very big asparagus, which is very tender and sweet. We like the big ones. They're actually better than the small ones.
Yeah, and I believe that asparagus comes up every second year. I have not really read that anywhere, but there's certain ones in your asparagus bed, you're going to know your asparagus, where they come up, certain kinds and everything. And I have a double one that comes up in a certain place, and it comes up every second year. The others come up, so anyway, the biggest thing to know is that you must weed it, or you're not going to be able to get the best.
Now remember, when you put asparagus in, usually you get them little plants. You can grow from seed, but it takes about 3 years before you get asparagus big enough before you can start harvesting it. You got to get the plants just time to grow.
Click. Video. Okay, now when we're talking about thinning, we want to talk about carrots in a very special way.
I might add to about thinning, we keep the best, and the rest you throw away. Actually, we don't usually throw them away. We usually take and try to give them to our neighbors. Somebody can use them, but we take the most healthy ones, transplant. If you're doing it for yourself, take the most healthy ones, and the rest, if you don't have a way to give them to, discard them.
Okay, what I want to say about carrots. I lived next to a lady who gave me all her carrots. She says, I can't grow carrots. They all grow around each other and they're tiny. Well, what I learned with Ivan is you have to thin your carrots. I didn't want to throw away these good carrots. They were good. Every little plant would grow a carrot, and we know it would. It was hard for me to throw those little plants away. But let me tell you, if you don't give them enough space for a carrot, if you want big carrots, you better give them enough room. When you're thinning them, think about what size you want when you're finished. They will only grow up to the size that you give them the room. And so if you want really big ones, you thin them more, take more out. And and with carrots, you don't go transplanting them, you just take them out. Plant enough seeds that it's a long enough row.
You got to realize when you plant the seeds, they don't all germinate. Some years everything germinates, some years only 50% germinate. So you got to thin them. If you don't thin them, they'll keep growing, but they'll grow round and round and round each other, and they'll be all twisty and curly and not very small, not very nice. And you won't have any more food. You'll have as much food out of the thin ones as you would out of all of them all twisted up together.
So it's real important. Another thing about thinning, I was wondering, why are my peas rotting in between? It was a warm year, warm and wet. And again, if you want like peas and string beans, you've got to thin them out. You've got to give them some room in between so that they don't just mold. Because that's what happened to me until I learned about that.
These are strawberries that we put in end of April, and actually, these weeds all grew in about 3 weeks. She had it looking like she had weeded there 3 weeks ago, and in 3 weeks' time they were like that. Because it's been a bad season for weeds. The plants are starting to really grow now, but for a long time the melons and that weren't doing anything. It wasn't warm enough.
Now, when we're talking about weeding, we have to consider hoeing versus pulling. When do you pull the weeds?
Well, when the weeds get big, I often go through and pull all the big weeds. I mean, they're up a foot or two. And Phyllis does the finishing. She does the little ones around the plant. But if they're big, you got to pull them.
And you use your tiller.
The best thing to do is to not let them get that big. But I don't always have time to get out there when I should. So.
But when the tiller goes through it.
Yeah, it goes through it. The main thing is you got to control the weeds somehow. It doesn't matter whether you pull them or you till them or something, and the idea is to get rid of the weeds and leave your plants.
And when possible, you try to pull the whole root up. But I want you to know for sure, this is something I never knew, nobody told me, and I learned. And that is, if you hoe them in a dry time, you cut the top off the plant. Yes, the root is still under the ground, but at least you haven't got weeds coming up. You can still do that. You just have to keep at it. And maybe later, if there's a big one, you can pull it out that comes up from the root. But get the tops up, get the weeds out, because your food is not going to grow otherwise.
It was so wet this year, though. I'd go down with the tiller and I would till, and the weeds be laying there, and they just kept green. They kept growing. But I finally did get 2 or 3 days where it was dry, and I tilled, and it killed them then. So just cutting the tops off on a really wet year, they have time to regerminate and keep going.
Now we want to talk about what we start indoors. And one of the things that I start indoors is sweet potatoes. Now, what do we do for sweet potatoes?
Well, this is something different than you do anywhere else. You want to tell them? Because you do it.
Yeah, and just go to the grocery store and get sweet potatoes. Get 4 or 5 good potatoes. And I have learned what kind of potatoes. I used to think maybe the thin ones would make more sprouts. But no, you're better to get a really fat one, get the expensive one, doesn't matter, big and fat kind with a thin bottom. And you want to find jars that they will fit. You want them suspended in the jar with water covering the bottom part of the sweet potato. Now then, after a short time, you keep them where it's warm, they will sprout. When the sprouts are about so big, 2 or 3 inches long, break them off and put them either in wet dirt or in water and let them get roots. It's those broken off sprouts that you plant, and that's what gives you your sweet potatoes. You can put that big potato in the ground and it doesn't even produce sweet potatoes, which amazed me, because with white potatoes, what do you do?
With the white potatoes, you cut up the potatoes so you have an eye in each one and plant that.
Yeah.
I might add to it with the white potatoes or the yellow potatoes, whatever. That's one thing, you have to keep the dirt over the potatoes as they're growing, because the potatoes will come up to the surface. If the sunlight gets on them, they'll turn green, and that green part is poisonous part of the potato. So you got to, what they call, hill them as they grow. The sweet potatoes too, when you put them in water, like she said, to grow them, you got to keep it where it's quite warm. Or if it's cool, you don't get sprouts. We might add to, we're not really talking about how to preserve them, but sweet potatoes is very different preserving than any other food you ever. We tried different ways. Finally, we went on the internet, I guess, and we finally got. Tell them how we do it.
Well, when you dig them up, with white potatoes, you wash them and dry them and put them away, right, for the winter. With sweet potatoes, you have to leave the dirt on them.
You just kind of shake it so whatever stays on, stays on.
It's got to stay on them. Do not wash them for 2 weeks. You have to wrap them in newspaper and then put them like in a box. Then we put the box up on top of the refrigerator. It's got to be 80 degrees for 2 weeks. And then they grow a second skin because they're very delicate. And that's why they look like they are going to, like they've lost some of their skin when you dig them up, because you can't help it. The fork that you're digging them with touches them sometimes. So for 2 weeks, you have to do this. Then after 2 weeks, if you want to wash them, you can. We just leave them in the newspaper, but you don't have to keep them out of the fridge.
No, you can take them out. You can put them where it's cool then, like a regular vegetable, and they'll keep then. But if you just try to keep them cool at the start, they won't keep.
Okay. Go ahead.
This particular picture here, you start tomatoes early. If you want to grow your onions from seed, start them in January, tomatoes in February, I guess. Different ones at different times. You can grow to cauliflower, cabbage. You start them early too, inside. We don't ourselves. We buy the plants. The cabbage and that we just plant direct in the ground. Cauliflower and that, we do that in the spring. But you can buy plants, tomato plants, so we always buy them. And Brussels sprouts. Now these tomato plants here are last year's tomato plants. You can actually see, I don't know whether you can see with the pointer there. Yeah, it isn't very strong there. Yeah, you can actually see some tomatoes in there. These plants last year, I never had tomato plants like that in my life. They grew about 5 feet high or so. And the corn, you can see the corn in the background, that was about 7 feet high. Remember, it was really hot last year. We had tomatoes, we had all kinds, but like I said, I got lots of water, and I just poured the water right to it, and with that heat, the stuff just bloomed there last year.
Now, you're talking about tomatoes. Do you have to hold them up, and how do you do that?
Well, you can see, like earlier you saw where the stakes were. I put the hoops in the stakes. You can still see the hoops and the stakes here. I don't know. But you can see the tomato plants are about 2 feet above the hoops and the stakes now, but they're still staying upright.
Now, what about cucumbers? How do you hold them up?
Well, I do the same thing. You can either put them by a wall or chicken netting, but I just put hoops with stakes like that, and then I put wire over the top. Or I think this year maybe I'll put some chicken wire over it, so they'll come up and then the cucumbers, they'll come up, and then you see them hanging down. Keeps them off the ground then.
And pole beans, we've already mentioned about how you hold them up with 12-foot
pole, or put them on a wall or something.
Okay. So, cross-pollination. Now we want to talk about that, because you've got to think about cross-pollination. In other words, if one vegetable gets mixed with another one just because the bees went from one to another straight, you don't want that. So what you have to do is make sure that certain foods are separated far enough in your garden from each other. Now, what would you have to do?
Just one word on this picture. This is the picture of our corn for this year. And you can see on the very left is the corn I started around the 24th of May. And the last row on the very right is around the 24th of June. That one might not mature this year. It's very cool. But you can see the different size of growth. And this is what I got for successive planting, so I have corn eating over a longer period. Our main crop will be someplace in the middle. Now about cross-pollination. If you plant broccoli and cauliflower close together, you'll have green cauliflower. You'll have to have green cauliflower. The broccoli might not head out like it wants to. Put cabbage and Brussels sprouts side by side. The Brussels sprouts won't form right. The cucumbers, and you put cucumbers in like watermelon or some melon close together, you'll have a cross there too.
Squashes, yeah.
Yeah, you got to keep your stuff far enough apart. So when I lay out the garden, I put one type of melon someplace, another someplace else, and the cucumber someplace else. So it's something you learn over the years.
And we certainly have learned that, and we're very careful when we're planting. Brussels sprouts especially, you want them nice and hard and small and round. And when you put them next to the collards, you know, is like a cabbage that's kind of open. we didn't get any little balls for our Brussels sprouts. Yeah, so this was our problem.
They were all loose heads.
So we sort of learned the hard way. And but there are a lot of vegetables. It doesn't matter whether they're next to each other. What can you put next to each other without a problem?
Carrots and beets, turnips, onions,
garlic.
And like I said, I often put a row of onions down close to the edge or alongside the strawberries. They spread a lot because the onions mature midsummer and you can pull them up and the rest. Then you can start tilling. Since the strawberries and that are spread out a lot, you can't get between the rows, but when the onions are gone, you can till there then.
Now we want to talk about pest control because this is one of the difficult things. But do you see this picture that we have here? One of the most fun things about weeding the garden is finding different kinds of bugs. This is a gold bug, and I can't believe it, but we have them in our garden. And guess where they are? In the asparagus garden. It's almost like the Lord did a special thing for me because I'm down there with my nose in the garden, and now I love it because I love to see these really gold. They look like pure gold, and they're tiny. They're just like a ladybug. They're the size of a ladybug. But and when we were in a museum one time looking, they said if you ever find one of these. There's gold bugs that are an inch long.
They look like June bugs.
Yeah, and those kind, they said if you can find one.
That's pure gold.
Yeah, that they're worth $5,000 each. Well, I have no idea what these things are worth in our garden, but they're the most fun to see. We also have tiny little red ones, bright red.
Now, Phyllis brought this bug inside for a few minutes and it changed color then.
Yeah, it turned to red later. But they're gold. There's a question, yes.
Yes. Do they harm the asparagus?
Do they harm this? No. This one doesn't harm them at all. There's a different red bug that's long, that's a little bit like a ladybug that does eat them. But if you harvest your asparagus properly at the right time, they can't get at it. They don't do.
There is a bug that lays eggs on the asparagus plant that's bad. I don't know what you call it.
Yes, and that bug, if you keep the weeds gone, then those bugs are gone. In other words, the ones that harm the asparagus, I found if I leave some weeds around certain asparagus, they're the ones that breed those kind of bugs, and they're the ones that eat it and cause problems for our asparagus. But these ones, they stay with the weeds, and I left a little corner of the garden with weeds in it because I wanted to find those gold ones.
You must realize that not all insects or bugs are bad. Your garden is full of worms and different things that actually aerate the soil for you. So they're not all bad. There is some bad ones. A tomato worm. Do you know what a tomato worm is? They'll eat up a plant. They'll eat it in about a day. They'll eat all the food, all the leaves off a plant. They grow very fast, and they get as big as my thumb and about 4 inches long, and they got two ugly horns out of them.
Oh, really?
But I don't do anything for them other than I watch for them, and when I find them, you immediately squash them. You immediately kill them. The potato bugs, Phyllis and I haven't grew potatoes for several years. Not that I can't grow potatoes, but you either got to spend a lot of time picking potato bugs, although if you plant them at the right time of the year, you don't get as many sometimes, but they're always there. Either that or you got to get poison and put on them. I don't have the time to pick the bugs, and the poison, I can buy the potatoes as cheap as it costs for the poison to put on to grow the potatoes, and I got to harvest them too. But if you want to grow potatoes, there's nothing wrong growing potatoes if you got the time and if you...
Now, what about
you got to control them?
Large pests, large pests in the garden. Why do you put wires up around?
Well, up to about 15, 18 years ago, I had no trouble with stuff like deer. But years ago, when I was growing up, we had 41 farmers. We lived in a farming community. We didn't farm, but we had 41 farmers shipping to the local cheese factory. They all were dairy farmers, and they shipped to the local cheese factory half a mile away. The land was open, and the farmers all had dogs, and the dogs were loose. And the deer were back, and we rarely saw a deer. Nowadays, sometimes we'll see 5 or 6. I haven't seen many this year. Now the hay was cut, we'll see more. But the animals stayed back in the woods. He didn't have the trouble with some of these animals. So actually, I put electric fence. The fence is only that high. But it isn't 4 feet high. 30 inches. But the deer don't jump over it. I don't tell them that they're able to. They'll come up and they stop. You would think that the deer would jump over that fence, but they don't. Because they sense that they've touched it and it's hot. Because I electrify it. You got to have a
battery.
Well, no, you can buy the units like they use for cattle and that, but you got to have some way to get 20,000 volts there anyway, so it gives them quite a snap. And if you're going to go corn, now I've known people put chicken wire fences around on insulators and electrify the whole thing. I just got one wired, and I can pull the stakes out when I want to work the garden in the spring, and I usually don't have much trouble with the deer till after they cut the hayfield, which was yesterday, but I put the fence up a month ago anyway. The other thing is, if you're growing corn, the raccoons love fresh corn before it's ready to harvest. And I put 3 wires in. I got one that far, one about that far, and one that far. And I'll have to put that on about another week and a half. And I'll keep that on till the corn is finished. Now I had... What happens?
Yeah, tell us the story.
Well, I had one last year. This was an unusually smart raccoon, I guess. It decided it would live in my barn, which is alongside of it. And it decided it would come and eat the corn in the daytime. Raccoons usually come out at night, but this one came in the daytime when I had the fence off. So I set a trap, I got it, and it lost its appetite. Like these things, some people might say, you'll read from Sister White's quote there, but some people might say, I'm cruel to the animals. If the animals stay in the woods, that's fine. But they come and invade my property, I kill them, because you can take them and you can let them go someplace. Once they get a taste for this kind of stuff, they'll come back. And they'll travel a long way to come back. They seem to have a sixth sense to know how to come back. So even though the raccoon looked very pitiful there, and I had a woodchuck, it decided it liked sweet potatoes and lettuce and some Swiss chard. I finally got it too, and it lost its appetite too.
Let me mention at this point, we have a document here. It's 3 different places in the Spirit of Prophecy. We have copied it down. And one of the statements this is from Spirit of Prophecy, that these pests must be killed. That's an actual statement. And where Sister White is very strong on saying that people that think the commandment that says thou shalt not kill includes things that hurt your food or hurt your garden. She said in this day and age, you have to use poison in order to put it on your fruit, or you're not going to get good fruit.
Yeah, she says you spray your fruit trees even.
Yeah, that you also have to kill animals that come into your garden, pests that come in. She says people that say that's covered by the commandment are not using their reason. And it's very interesting to read this. You can go on the ellenwhite.org, internet. Yeah.
Website, White
and
Pest.
that's where I got these from, and also from Pastor Fagel of the Ellen White Estate, because I was from the city, and I said, I don't want anything killed. In fact, I knew one man, and he didn't want to kill a fly or a mosquito. But I'm telling you, they're all covered under this, and it's saying, use your sense. In fact, she's saying that if you say you should never kill things that are bothering your food, she says you're making a laughingstock out of what God has as very serious of not killing people in murdering.
Now, I will say that I think they use too much pesticides in lots of ways today. The farmers... when I was growing up, the farmers rotated their crops, and they didn't use much pesticide. I can remember when they grew corn, they'd only grow one field, but they cultivated. They didn't put all this poison on they do now. But I can remember years ago, one of the farmers up there, the lady grew a garden, and she didn't want any weeds in her garden, so she had the bright idea she'd put the stuff that killed the weeds in the corn patch on her garden. Well, she did. She didn't have any weeds, but the only thing she had in her garden was corn that year.
Killed everything.
Killed everything else, weeds included. So,
Okay, about keeping pests out, why do we put nets on the top of our strawberries and tomatoes sometimes?
well, when the strawberries are being harvested, the birds like them. The chipmunks, now the chipmunks, that's a little bit different. They'll go underneath the net sometime. I usually do away with them too. You get a live animal trap, and chipmunks seem to like a building, so you put it in the building, and they'll go in there and put a strawberries no good or something in there that's half rotten. They'll go in there, and when you get them, you keep a bucket of water, so you put the trap and all in there. Last year, unfortunately, we lost half of our crop to, I imagine it was a weasel last year, because I didn't have any chipmunks. But something was eating the berries, and I wasn't able to get it, and I think it was a weasel. A weasel will go through a very small opening, and this mesh was probably too big in my trap, and it was going through it. You know what a weasel is? Have you ever seen a weasel?
Very tiny.
Well, they're quite long, but they go through a very small place. In the winter, they have a nice little white tip on their tail. And they're very vicious for the size of them. Although years ago, I come back to the garden and something had gone down. The corn was up about 2 inches, and something went down and put all the corn out. But we had a big Siamese cat at that time. And it was a very docile cat with the kids and that, but it loved to kill wild things, chipmunks and squirrels and baby rabbits and that. And the next morning there was a weasel up, but the cat killed the weasel, and I was very surprised at that. But the cat brought it up, and I had no more trouble with my corn after that.
Good. So we want to talk about harvesting briefly, and we want to tell you specifically about string beans. Now, when do you have to be careful not to pick string beans?
String beans, pick them when they're dry, because they will rust. Just handling them when they're wet, the beans will rust. The plants are. It isn't good. Just stay away from them till you get it dry, till they get dry.
So about 10 o'clock in the morning, they're dry. So you can pick them after 10 in the morning.
Well, if it isn't raining or if it isn't foggy or something, but.
Of course. Okay, multiplier onions, we said that we put them in the ground early, but as far as harvesting them, I guess we did mention that.
Yeah, well, these that you can see there's big gaps between them where the weeds are growing, but these onions, I'll leave them now till they get dry, till the tops dry off, and we'll put them. Now, onions, onions and garlic, that you got to get a place where you can spread them one deep where they can dry. We got an ideal spot at our place underneath the porch where the sun gets at it from the east, and I got a place where we spread them out once they get dry, because if you just store them in a heap, there's enough moisture with the dirt on them and that they'll spoil.
One thing we didn't mention earlier is plants that get seeds on top of them early before the actual food is ready. If you take off those seed pods, if you don't need them, then you get a bigger bulb at the bottom. Like even with rhubarb, if you take off the seeds when they're coming, then you have your stalks longer. They grow bigger and better. With onions, when they grow their seeds on top, take them off, break them off. With garlic, they grow curls, and the seed is in there. You cut them off when the curls come, and that way the food all goes down into the bulb.
Those garlic curls, they taste very garlicky, and I knew my brother was growing garlic, 40 acres, and he was selling them in Toronto to the restaurants. They would chop them up and put them in salads and put them in soup.
Well, I know some people use them. We don't, but you know somebody who wants them, give them to them.
They're so hard. I tried using them. I use them in cooking and that, and I don't like them. But if other people like them, there's no problem. We'll give you all our curls.
You must remember that rhubarb do not eat the leaves. The leaves are poisonous in rhubarb. Yeah, don't eat the leaves on rhubarb. Other things, if you want to keep seeds, carrots, you got to leave them in the ground. The carrots only grow seeds normally on the second year. They go to seed. Parsley is the same. If it survives the winter, it'll go up the next year and it'll turn. The seeds will come out then.
So when do you harvest most of your garden, like the ones above the ground, and when do you do the root ones?
The root ones I usually then, like beets and carrots, I leave to the end of October, just before the frost comes. Some of the stuff you got to harvest before it freezes, or before it freezes very hard, like squash. They take a light frost. There was one other thing I wanted to mention. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I could say about watermelon. It takes, according to the seeds, it takes 104 days or 106 days or something like that. It's very hard to tell when watermelon is ripe. I know my uncle used to knock on it, and when it sounds like there's lots of water in it, then it's ready. But we have to guess at that. But otherwise, like cantaloupes and muskmelons, they turn white. And
deep yellow.
And deep yellow, you
orange.
can tell them easily. We're almost finished, but we wanted to mention the perennial food. Jerusalem artichokes is one that some people like to eat.
But we got a man over here, if you need some, he's got lots of them. We grew them for a while, but then they just spread everywhere. And they just take over everything. So we got rid of them, and we didn't care for them that much. But you can dig them up in the winter if you want to through the snow, I guess. But they'll come up by themselves. And
then Egyptian onions, they keep coming up year by year. But they seem so tough. They're not really and hotter than regular onions, but they come up first thing in the spring. If you want onions that keep coming up. And they're cute. What do they do on top?
Well, they grow a little seed pod on top.
Tiny little, they're like onion sets.
Well, they're like onion sets on top, yeah.
Right on top of them. And then we've talked about asparagus already. So we mentioned about the growing season. The farther north that you go, what would you say about the growing season?
Well, it's significantly shorter. And we didn't mention the soils too much. You got sandy soil, which if you got enough water on it, enough fertilizer, it will grow. You got heavy clay soil. I'm not sure just what it's here. Probably fairly heavy clay. I know over in the highway, I used to live here, just where you come on Dolora Road, and that was very heavy clay. Where we are, it's kind of a sandy loam. It's a beautiful soil to work with. But each one, you have to learn what your soil is like. And I'm not saying you shouldn't get it tested to see what it lacks. Usually it lacks nutrients or something. We haven't, because we put the granite fertilizer, the manure on it, and every year it grows good. But some years, some parts of the garden don't have much in it. Other years they have a lot. Like some years say you should summer follow it. But since I rotate the crops, in some places there's big spaces, I just work up. And the strawberry plants that I came from last year, I'll be tilling them up pretty soon.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I've been given here by our brother Graham a special chart, and this is a chart you might be able to purchase or get online, and it's called Clyde's Garden Planner. And what this does is it tells you when to plant each thing when, and when the frost is going to come, and
you determine your local frost, and then it tells you based off your frost.
Okay, you determine your local frost, and you can pull it out and get it to exactly your area. So that's nice to know there's such a thing available. We've been telling you what is true for our area right here. And then
however, the seasons vary a lot even from area to area. So just because this chart says there won't be any frost at this certain date, I can remember it freezing here in June.
You slide it from where your frost is going to be.
Well, normally, but even in this area, we don't usually get frost after the 24th of May. But I remember one year we got frost in June, and we got a hard frost. And remember, somebody put pails over the tomato plants, and they froze underneath the pails. I had plastic, and it didn't freeze, but the pails were metal, and it froze.
And what did you do for strawberries when it was going to freeze?
That was the other. Yes, one year I put water on it. We got -3 here a couple of years ago, and the blossoms were out. I put the sprinklers on, and I got 1/4 of an inch of ice on those blossoms, but it didn't hurt it. If you don't do that, the blossoms turn black in the center, and you get little wee berries. I know what else I was going to talk about, strawberries. Cover them in the winter so they don't winter kill. Use straw, marsh hay. My parents use marsh hay. I'm using the asparagus get high, so I cut it off in the fall after it's died, and I take my dead corn stalks and I put that over my strawberry plants. Don't take it off in the spring to late April or early May. Take it off late enough that it retards the plants enough that the blossoms come out after danger of the last frost. Because if you get a frost on those blossoms, like I said, you'll get little strawberries tinted that's stunted. And they'll be small, they might be sweet, but you won't get near the crop. Very important. And if you don't cover it, sometimes if you get a winter that's fairly open, you'll get a lot of winter kill on your strawberry plants.
Okay, and we said for the final one, don't forget the flowers. It's worth it to grow flowers too. But if you have to choose between the two, what should you do?
Well, if you only got so much space and you don't want to go hungry, you better grow your vegetables. Flowers might be nice to look at, but you might be pretty lean eating flowers.
Now, Sister Jasmine had an announcement about...
Just 1 second here. This lettuce here we're going to give away to somebody. That's dill. It just comes up by itself. And I'm going to show you, if Phyllis come here for 1 second, we just want to demonstrate. This is a strawberry plant. It's not fit for planting now. It's too late. But I hope you don't mind if I just make a little thing. But can you see it from there? This is how my parents used to plant 1,500 plants a day. My dad would go down, and he just, like it, when it's tilled, it goes down easier. You move it ahead, you slip the plant behind, you pull the shovel out, and they put 1,500 plants a day in that way. And you go about that far apart for the next one. But the roads are wide. And but of course, when the ground is well tilled, the shovel goes in. Today it didn't go in very far, but I just wanted you to see that's how you plant strawberry plants. They're very tough.
Strawberries are very hardy.
And you can plant them in snowstorms and that, and they'll take. You can see on the picture that one that she was weeding the strawberries how they looked the way they were running now.
I don't see Sister Jasmine here, but she wanted to announce about food. There's a question at the back.
What about if you were to cover your strawberries with the netting? Do you just throw the netting on top of the strawberries?
How we put the netting on?
Oh, don't put the netting on to the berries that are. Like I got netting on right now because I had a woodchuck come and I got netting over my sweet potatoes. Oh, you just get it in rolls and you just roll it out. You got to put some kind of something to hold it in the corner.
We use the kind of stakes like you put a tent up, you know.
Well, I lost all the ones that came.